Creating an employee training manual is the first step towards empowering your team and enjoying some smooth scaling. But here's the problem. A lot of businesses make the same mistakes, turning what should be a valuable tool into a confusing, ineffective mess. Now, I've had the pleasure of working with hundreds of businesses who are streamlining their knowledge and their training systems, and today I'm going to share the top 5 mistakes that they make, and more importantly, how you can avoid them. Now, these aren't just small mishaps, they're actually the kind of mistakes that can cost your business time, money, and even your top talent. Especially number 1, because almost everybody makes this mistake, but it is actually the easiest to fix. If you want a training manual that drives growth and doesn't hold your business back, stick around. Before we dive into the mistakes, let's make sure we're actually all on the same page. What exactly is an employee training manual? Well, whether you call it a training manual, a business playbook, an SOP manual, an employee handbook, perhaps a procedure guide, it's all essentially a similar thing. It's a collection of all the key processes, procedures, systems, and training material that your team needs to work effectively. A great training manual or a business playbook can ensure that every employee, no matter their role, has the right tools and the right information to perform at their best. And as your business scales, this playbook becomes a vital tool for consistency and efficiency across the board. Let's go. What is worse than no training at all? Bad training, and more specifically, overwhelm during training. One of the biggest mistakes is trying to cram everything into one giant overwhelming document, because our 5th most common mistake is information overload. Look, your team doesn't need to know the entire history of the company or every tiny detail about every process. They essentially need to know the right information at the right time. If you've ever seen a new employee scrolling through hundreds of pages trying to find the one thing they need, it is inefficient and it is very frustrating. But it's not just about cutting back on the amount of information. You also need to make sure that your team members are getting the content that's relevant to them. Not everything in the playbook will be essential for every role. The solution here is simple. Break your playbook down into smaller digestible chunks and crucially signal which parts are required for their specific role and which parts are just there for reference material. This is something you can do very specifically in Waybook, for example, and make sure that one document can be important for one user and actually just there for additional context for another. Now, this ensures that people have the right access to the right type of content. They're not overwhelmed by all of the information within your playbook, but they still have access to the things that gives them the relevant information. So overwhelm removed. Mistake number 4 is lack of structure. Nobody wants to play hide and seek with important information, right? But that is exactly what happens when your playbook doesn't have a clear and consistent structure. It essentially becomes difficult for your employees to find what they need, and that just leads to lots of inefficiencies and time lost. But here's the thing, having a strong structure doesn't just benefit your employees, it also helps you as a manager to prioritize and organize the information. Because without that structure, you can end up with silos of information, or worse, multiple versions of the same document floating around, which I know is something that people really find a bugbear. The solution here is to start with a simple structure and organize the manual into categories like the company overview, role-specific tasks and policies, and then try and use a consistent format across as many of the documents as possible. In this, make sure you try and include a brief introduction and outline of each document for easy navigation. Platforms like Waybook help you centralize everything so you can actually avoid that duplication and ensure that your team always is looking at the most up-to-date version of every process. The goal here is essentially to keep things streamlined and easy to access, both for you and also for your team. Mistake number 3 is neglecting visual elements. We've all been there just staring at a block of text. It is a bit boring. Well, the same goes for your employees. Because when you were looking at your training playbook and it's all text and no visuals, it's so hard for your team to stay engaged. And more importantly, it's hard for them to retain any of the information. Remember that people learn in different ways. Some prefer reading, some prefer visuals, some prefer videos. So if your playbook is purely text, then you're literally missing out on engaging your entire team. The easy solution here is to aim to include at least 2 different types of content for each document, but ideally 3 or 4 different types of content to really keep it dynamic and engaging. For example, if you're explaining a process, try and combine text with a flowchart, an infographic, and maybe even a short video walkthrough. In Waybook, you can embed lots of different visuals, lots of different types of content to make your training materials not just more engaging, but actually easier to understand and of course to follow. This takes us to mistake number 2, which is essentially creating a static and outdated document. Here is a big one because a lot of people treat their training playbook as a set it and forget it project. But business processes change all the time. What worked for you 6 months ago might not be relevant today. And if your playbook isn't updated regularly, then you risk giving your employees outdated information, which often leads to confusion, leads to mistakes, and sometimes is actually worse than having no information at all. So when you're creating your playbook, make sure that it is dynamic. Try and assign owners to each section or each document for the people who are responsible for keeping that document up to date. You can schedule reviews of specific section of your playbook and make sure that it reflects the latest processes and policies. Platforms like Waybook help you to easily update and version control your documents, ensuring that your team always has access to the most current information. And with Waybook, you can even set automatic reminders to periodically check, update and review that information so nothing falls through the cracks. And finally, mistake number 1 is ignoring employee feedback. Let's be real, your playbook is only valuable if your team can use it. So if you're not actively getting feedback from the people using your training materials, you're missing a huge set of crucial insights. But feedback isn't just about asking, hey, how was it? It's actually about tracking how your employees actually interact with your playbook. Here, there are essentially 2 different types of feedback to gather, the direct feedback and the data on how they're using it. These 2 different types of feedback give you a full picture of how useful the playbook is and what optimizations you can make from it. Once we're looking at the data of how people are using the playbook, we can see things of the specific terms they're searching for. Are they repeatedly asking the same questions that aren't clearly answered within the playbook? With Waybook, you can not only collect the direct feedback from your team members on each specific document or part of a document, you can also analyze how your users are interacting with the content. What are they searching for? What are they asking for? What sections are most commonly looked at? And what knowledge gaps do you have within that? This essentially helps you continuously refine and improve your playbook, making it a living and breathing resource that evolves with your team and your business. So there you have it, the 5 crucial mistakes to avoid when creating your employee training manual. By steering clear of these pitfalls, you'll build a playbook that empowers your team, scales with your business, and frees up your time to focus on growth. And remember, a training playbook isn't just a powerful document, it's a powerful tool to create clarity from the chaos and drive efficiency across your whole business. If you're ready to take your playbook to the next level, check out Waybook. Waybook helps you build, organize, and maintain a training playbook that really can empower your team and grow with your business. With Waybook, you can create dynamic, engaging training materials, keep everything up to date, have full version control, and always make sure that your team has access to the latest information instantly available when they need it. Visit waybook.com and get started with a free trial, and you can see how you can create a single source of truth that works for you. Thanks for watching, and if you do want a step-by-step on how to create an effective training manual for your team, check out this video here, and until next time, hope you enjoy some smooth scaling.